It is daybreak. You are to set forth now for the spring of Jymir for what appears to be the final time. Thereafter, you shall return here for one last exile's final chance at it. Everything's getting dark as well. Yep, it's everywhere. Well, we're at the twilight now. Hey, sorry, look, I know I bumped you. Get out. Yeah. Hey! Get out of the way! Jesus. What we got? An unusual present spirit here? Yeah, alright. God damn. Let's land here. Contact the apparition. As you walk through a dark corner of Fall Flat, you sense a presence of some sort which reaches out to you. What the fuck? It presents to you a vision of the adversary you expect to face in the coming rite. The apparition is aware of your next adversary in the rites, Manly. It offers to sway the coming rite against him in your favor. Accepting your adversary shall suffer a misfortune that inhibits his performance. Nothing permanent, it claims. Decline, and the apparition shall extend its offer to Manly instead. Accept? You thank the apparition for its generous offer, and accept what it proposed. A moment later, the apparition folds in on itself and disappears. As you head back to the Black Wagon, you cannot help but wonder what exactly it intends to do. Oh, sick. Whatever. Anyone to talk to? Nope. That's the right. After making all the necessary preparations amid the stark badlands of the spring of Jymir, you and your companions await the commencement of the next rites. It is quieter even than usual at the onset of such events. The lone minstrel appears, bearing some sort of news. I have checked, and it appears as though the chastity have not yet arrived, reader sir. There is no sign of Manly, or anyone. Their sigil is not set either. If what he says is true, and your adversaries are not present then, you presume the rite cannot commence. However, the stars themselves do indicate you are mistaken. So what's going on exactly? No one's here? But we're starting anyway?
Reader, the Commonwealth, your home. Today it is aflame. Much like a stack of books. Aflame because of you. Because of your outlandish plan. Not that you care. Not that you shall live to see this place again. Your attempts at revolution shan't succeed. Though by all means keep trying. As for myself, I shall enjoy presiding over these remaining rites.
The rite is set to commence, but your adversaries, they have failed to show. Smartest choice I've seen them make. They had no chance of getting another liberation rite, did they? Indeed, as the rites are drawing to a close, some of the triumvirates whom you have met, perhaps they are beginning to decide the stars are not worth heeding any longer. Manly, you wonder whether he would give up on the rites like that. He seems so convinced he would prevail and return in glory to the Commonwealth. Perhaps a contrary reality was too much for him to take. In any case, we have begun the ceremony here, and so I ask that we end it. Are we literally just gonna do a victory lap where we run in there? Oh, yeah, I guess you should have something, shouldn't you? Oh yeah, yours was pretty sick. You get to have that one. We take no pleasure snuffing out a flame disowned.
Lo, even your adversaries have abandoned you. And it is done. The Nightwings prevail by default.
Oh.
Not that their adversaries even care.
That was easy. Don't see why the rest of you are so dour. True. That's how I'd look at it, to be honest. Didn't even get any experience. That's fair.
And wallow in the downside for a while.
I guess we cursed him with that apparition for nothing. No one speaks further of the chastity back at the Black Wagon. Everyone is instead preoccupied with the right that is to come. Our final chance at liberty presents itself at last. You surmise that to be the long and short of it, then? The stars always shine with the truth. The ending of the cycle of the rites is now upon us. He looks over to you. Please look forth, reader, sir, and see this for yourself. You may very well surmise where we are going next. The others turn to you as well. You turn toward the wagon's door. You know what you shall see out there. Now, however, the time has come to face it. The dim and fading light of the final star still pierces through the darkness, demanding your attention, guiding you toward the end point of your path. You see plain the golden star of Selim. The last remaining star soon shall be gone. We have this one last chance to get one of us out here. May the scribes be merciful to us all. Yep. You are summoned to the Fall of Selim for your 7th and final liberation rite. Thus shall the cycle of the rites be ended for an age. You sense that if the rites shall ever commence again, it shall not be during your lifetime, or that of any of your companions, even the longest-lived ones. The stars reveal to you one thing more. The adversary who you face shall be Orlek. Already he has crossed Scribe's Gate and awaits your arrival. If the 8 scribes created the Nightwings in their own likeness, perhaps it is only fitting that the Nightwings should, in the end, be forced to face themselves. It is a shame that we should have to confront Orlek in the end. Our goal should never have been at cross purposes. I am surprised that this is what the scribes desire. For now, it may be best that you recover until dawn, regain your strength as best you can for the coming rite. Rest well, reader. The group disperses as exhaustion sets in. At dawn, you fly to Mount Elodiel to make a final effort to achieve your plan and get somebody home. But who? I think this would be a fair rite to throw, honestly. I'm not going to, but...
Your so-called friends. You are accomplice to their hateful plot.
Extremely.
They are exploiting you. You shall never have your freedom.
Tragic. By dawn, you're already up and about. After a troubled slumber, the Black Wagon is prepared for its final voyage to the Fall of Selim. No one speaks. As you lift into the skies, the lone minstrel raises his voice, cutting through the somber mood. Reader, a certain olden ballad comes to mind just now. I think it may befit the circumstances. Perhaps it may even help pass the time along our flight. Would you mind very much if I were to play the song for the Nightwings? By all means. You urge the lone minstrel to play his ballad so that all among you might hear it. He begins without another word.
When the stars align, the rites shall come to bear. Illuminate the signs, the exiles shall be there. All are not the same, but 3 shall be as one. Freedom in flame, the end has just begun. Strength may break our own, but twisted make a great. Together on their own, the journey shall be made. The journey shall be made.
You touch down amid the narrow passageways of Mount Elodial to make pilgrimage to the summit for one last time. There, one last liberation rite shall soon commence. There, one last exile shall regain his or her freedom, while others shall remain to carry out their sentences here in the downside for the remainder of their lives. And in the Commonwealth, the plan of which you are a part shall either come to fruition or shall be suppressed. After having landed, you join Volfred on an expedition to the monument of Jemur Many-Mane for what is likely to be the final time. Hear me, O scribes, long have I served your will, and long have I pursued the path which you revealed to me. Our plan now stands on a precipice. If we prevail this night, then we may yet achieve its goals. We would reform the Commonwealth under the auspices which you yourselves described within your book. As we shall stand together, so I ask that you please stand with us. By your divine grace we may yet prevail, and please have mercy on Oralek as well. Soon he is finished. You return to the wagon in silence, feeling as though Jemur Many-Mane has shown you favor. At dawn you shall begin your last descent, for now your vocations may occupy what little time you have to spare.
Very well, then. Educate us if thou canst.
You and Bertrude review what observations you have made thus far about the various triumphants you have confronted on your journey. She has keen insights about some of them. Doesn't help anything, but, what else are we gonna do?
For those who deign confront us, we shall have increasing reasons to beware.
My boy. The imp's message pertains to Faye, who you liberated at the fall of Selium, and whose past transgressions have all been forgiven since her return to the Commonwealth. You learn that she was taken in by a well-to-do foster family and was to be given private schooling of the highest order in the Astralist tradition. They promised her that in time she might one day have the honor of teaching the children of the Commonwealth herself. However, she soon went her own way, insisting that the 8 scribes themselves were calling her. She started wandering again, all on her own. That is until she located Volfred's agents. Thus her wandering ceased, and the ranks of the revolution grow stronger. Faye also left a simple message: believe in the scribes. No special interaction for Tizo, very disappointing. She better be more careful, else they'll throw her right back in here with the rest of us. She has the manner of a saint, that one. She knows in her heart the tradition of the scribes.
That one. Very powerful indeed. A sorceress of sorts. A certain air about her. Most intriguing.
The news of Faye's liberation fills you and your fellow exiles with newfound resolve. You stand before the scribe's gate with your companions. The gate guardian's there, as ever, but you sense something different in her. The exiles of the Nightwings, we shall not meet again after the coming rite. Tariq and I, it shall be time we take our rest, I think. Greetings, Celeste. I would tell you that the Nightwings are prepared, though this time I am uncertain anyone amongst us feels thus. We have a duty to uphold, Tariq. And then what, Celeste? And then nothing, not for the rights, or us, not till the dawn of a new age. Now, Nightwings, step forward, please state your names and what it is you seek whilst crossing Scribe's Gate. One by one, your fellow exiles approach her, now with sureness in their step. I'll go. Pamitha Thene. I came seeking my blood sister Tamitha's forgiveness, since she ended up in here because of me. Maybe something good can come of it, as yet. My name is Volfred Sandalwood. I long as yet to see an age where freedom is one's birthright, and no longer are good people such as these forced to be contented for it.
We are called Big Bertrude. We seek to fulfill the plan of Sandalwood, for we are fond of him and his beliefs, and then to go about our business.
Finally, you step forth once more. You, a common wanderer who vowed to help his friends be free again, and who managed to come this far with this group. The gate guardian observes you for a moment, then motions past the archway toward the summit. The 8 scribes bid the Nightwings welcome. Go forth with glory. Except for you, Tariq. You stay right there. I thought you said, the rites are not yet ended, Tariq. He looks to her, then over to the rest of you. Pardon me, everyone. I shall be there when the stars align. The Gate Guardian and the Lone Minstrel remain together as the rest of you depart. You have gained the summit of Mount Elodiel for the 7th time, the final time in which any of you shall have a chance to leave the downside. You got anything to say? Hey guys! I guess you probably heard the big news, huh? Yeah, I'm going out of business here, I guess. Just hasn't been the same, you know, with the stars all fading out and stuff. Anyways, just wanted to say, you guys are great, and I'm sure gonna miss having you guys as customers and all of that. But I got some good news, though, too. All my stuff, it's all on sale now, and I will throw a little extra there just for you, okay? So, enjoy, and maybe I'll be seeing you guys around, okay? Are 5% off. Great. I'll see you guys around. You have gained the summit of Mount Elodiel for the 7th time. Very few stars remain here above to light your way as you await the commencement of the final liberation rite. The Lone Minstrel finds you clutching the Book of Rites, seeking there perhaps some bit of wisdom that has eluded you thus far. Reader, we may not have a chance to speak again after this. I may have to go. I wish to say that I am grateful for having made your acquaintance, and I shall remember you with fondness. I wish you well this night and always. Go forth with glory. Then he looks at you and extends his hand in friendship. You clasp it. You see, Pamitha has joined you. All of your companions are there with her, in fact. Well, reader darling, what do you say we give those old scribes a real show to remember then, shall we?
Reading one, thou art both wiser and less irritating than most others of their kind. We have learned something from thee, and we are grateful.
It is strange for me to say, given the circumstances of our meeting, reader. But it has truly been a pleasure. Onward now, let us achieve our plan. You look upon your fellow exiles, your companions with whom you have withstood the downside, and with whom you shall now conduct this final rite. Begging your pardon, but my time has come. We shall see each other soon. He departs. After this night, the outcome of Volfred's plan, the plan of which all of you have been a part, shall be decided, one way or another. For now, all you can do is strive to prevail against your final adversary, so that one last companion may go free. You rise to join your fellow exiles as the last remaining stars ignite. The stars have joined us. Absolutely no. Oh, it doesn't even let you? No, it would. Okay. They looked great now.
Look, for one last time, upon the fall of Solium, dear reader. Hear me for one last time. For soon, the few remaining stars shall fade away, leaving you stranded there for your remaining days in that forsaken land where you deserve to be. The rabble that you roused here in the Commonwealth shall be put down. The exiles whom you liberated, all shall fall in line. But first, let us get on with this last liberation rite. You face none other than yourselves. Each so unlike the glorious Nightwings of yore. 'Tis a shame that one of you shall soon be free, for you deserve each other.
The pyres burn and each of the triumphants is present and prepared. But before the Lone Minstrel can concur, as per the custom, not another word. The demon Orlek slowly rises his clawed fingers to his mask. The false Nightwings have arrived at last. Long have I awaited this. My freedom once was stolen from me, then I was cheated of it, here upon this mountain top. You may now attempt to take it from me once more. He stands there for a moment, silent, Then, Orlek dons his mask and stands prepared. May these damned rites cease forever for the misery which they have caused. Nightwings, we shall not meet again after tonight, for the cycle of the rites is all but ended. Thus I would have your decision. On whose behalf shall you conduct this final liberation rite? The one whom you anoint, or else the exile Orlek shall be returned. Godspeed, reader. You know what is at stake better than I. I have the utmost faith in you to make the best decision and conduct this rite with glory. Nightwings, the star's remaining light grows dim. Your decision, please. It is time now to choose who, if anyone among you, shall go free this one last time. The rest of you shall remain in the downside till the end of your days. One by one you meet the gaze of your fellow exiles. Pamitha, Bertrude, Volfred. Your fellow exiles, your companions, your friends. Together, you have come this far, but now the downside and the rites conspire to tear your group apart and disrupt your plan. Are you prepared to choose this one last time? Yes. With but a glance, you reassure your fellow exiles that you know what to do.
One final opportunity for salvation.
Show me the exiles.
Too bad for the rest of you.
Orlek. Doing any kind of bio on these guys? An imp loyal to Orlek and committed to the legacy of his true Nightwings. All you know for certain is that he serves the true Nightwings. A savage who stands with the Nightwings, yeah, well. Not much to say about them, but it was pointed out we should examine Orlek's team. Never used this, did I?
Volfred.
Long have I dreamt that I might someday see this plan of ours come to fruition. I promise you that I shall make the most of it if we are to prevail. Your choice is cast. As for your other companions, you sense a clarity of thought and purpose in each of them. They stand ready to support Volfred as well as you.
Who shall stand with him? Pamitha.
Wouldn't have wanted to sit this one out, that's for sure, reader darling.
Bertrude.
Thy will is ours, reading one. Let the remaining stars shed their light upon our ceremony here.
Very well.
Those are to be my adversaries, then. And who is it, I wonder, who asserts his will over that group? You sense Orlek searching for you, almost reaching out to you. You, the shadow of the false Nightwings. They are nothing to me, but you. You who would relinquish your own liberty for the sake of them. Strange. It is fitting, then, that I should have to face one such as you. Then Orlek stands at ready, signaling for his two allies to do the same. By light of dawn, the cycle of the rites shall cease. Let us see if we can finish this ordeal before that time. The skies above begin to shudder. The final liberation rite is about to commence. Tariq? Aye, I am prepared, Celeste. Then let our song this evening shake the stars themselves. Aye, Celeste, let us make sure of it.
Begin. The final chance at liberation for the age.
Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus Christ. I got bodied by him. That's one big aura you got there. The skies rain ash. Soon shall your pyre's own mingle with them. Just then the skies above begin to rain down fire, the final throes of the rites and the ending of the age. Jesus Christ. Well, that's very unkind of you. Ah, I see. Right, hers goes through walls now. Gotta remember that.
No, cut it.
Oh, fuck. Oh my god. I'm a little upset about that one. Wait, did I not have it? Is that it? Is it just over here? That would explain it. You wear the raiments once again. I could not simply stand by and do nothing, Orlek. Yet that is what you did when last we stood together on this blasted mountain. I fell, you simply stood. Orlek, what shall it take for you to be convinced I took no part in your betrayal? Orlek seems to consider the question, but only for a moment. Give me my damn freedom. Let me prevail, here and now. Would you promise to uphold our plan, to bring about a better Commonwealth? No, I make no promises. I owe you nothing. Then I am sorry, Orlek. My love of country comes before all else. More than your freedom and our friendship is at stake. Your love be damned, Volfred. Let us stand as adversaries, then. Oh. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, sick.
Their pyre sputters.
So, the false Nightwings bear their fangs at last. But that cannot be your finest effort. You think you deserve your freedom more than I. Then fight for it, damn you.
How he has changed, that Orlek. Grown old and bitter all these many years. Be gone now, Orlek.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
Sick. Okay.
Blessed be.
That would be
All of the true Nightwings gone. Her wings have served her true.
Orlek stands, breathing heavily. He looks back on the thin lick of flame that is his smoldering pyre, before turning his attention back to your triumvirate. Nice try.
United in banishment. Oh, so close. Quite an exchange.
Yep.
Now then.
Oh. Ugh.
Let me in.
Oh, it takes a lot to land.
And there it is, at last. The Nightwings proved their worth. Their adversaries they defeated utterly. Thus ends the liberation rite. And thus the scribes have chosen.
Praise the scribes. We've done it. You look upon Volfred for what you expect shall be the last time you see each other. Any moment now, the Shimmer Pool shall engulf him. Any moment now, he shall return to glory and join his agents in the Commonwealth to help achieve the plan. Any moment now, the cycle of the right shall end, until at least the dawn of a new age. Any moment now.
And thus the scribes have chosen. And thus the scribes have chosen. And thus the scribes have chosen. No. Nightwings. Reader, what have you done?
Hold. There's something wrong. Each prior time upon the fall of Salim, the Shimmer Pool has opened following the liberation rite and taken in whichever has prevailed. But now all is still, and the light of the stars above has all but died. You sense a growing fear that is already too late, that the Shimmer Pool shall not reveal itself again. Orlek approaches, his head bowed. The 8 scribes saved their greatest treachery for last. Then something else catches his notice. Wait. A sudden rush of starlight cascades through the stillness of the summit. The Shimmer Pool has appeared again, different somehow, but open. Volfred looks upon it, but it does not engulf him, or at least not yet. It seems I was mistaken then. The 8 scribes, this is not their greatest treachery, it is their greatest jest. The Shimmer Pool is flung wide open. It seems that all are worthy now of freedom. Orlek strides towards the Shimmer Pool, but... Halt, Orlek. Orlek glances over at the lone minstrel, almost in surprise. The Shimmer Pool has lost most of its strength. You step inside and you shall surely drown, of that I can assure you. He laughs to himself at this. Then we have all been cheated. No, the Shimmer Pool is revealed, and one of you may still return as planned. But, as for who returns, someone shall have to choose. Ere the last light of the stars is extinguished and the rite cease to be, this is the final trial of the scribes. The final trial of the scribes. Then our confrontation, the liberation rite. It was all meaningless. No, the victors of the confrontation is to be the one to make the choice amongst those closest to the scribes, either the anointed or he who anointed them. So then, the choice is mine to make. My freedom weighed against the readers. Is that it? Aye, it shall be either you, the reader, or... It shall be either or. Volfred, please make your decision quickly, lest it shall be forfeit. I do not know of how much longer the light of the stars shall offer you this gift. A snap decision, then. Fine, I have it made. Reader, my boy, the chance of freedom that we've earned, it's yours. Take it now, and make good use of it, for you and all of us. Volfred wishes to give up his freedom, so that you may regain yours. Very well. Reader, sir, the choice which Volfred made, or rather the choice which he gave, it is now yours to make instead. This choice It may keep bouncing back and forth like this. Absurd. It may, until such a time one of you is willing to accept the burden and the outcome of the choice. That is the trial. And I fear there is little time remaining now. Reader, if you and your companions are too cordial with each other to accept that freedom, either one of you, then I shall gladly take it. Freedom ought be more than some flirtatious trifle to exchange. Reader, what is your will? Okay, Volfred. Your mind is made up. You have chosen to be free yourself. I see and understand. Then it is done. Volfred looks to you this one last time, his heart filled with unspoken understanding. You turn then to the lone minstrel for an instant, but another instant later, he is gone, and everyone. All you feel is the coldness of the rush of water coursing all around you. Volfred gave his freedom so that you may yet have yours. May you return in glory.
Godspeed, reader. By the scribes. No stars remain aloft. The cycle of the rites. It is finished. The Commonwealth. What shall become of it? What shall become of us? Nightwings. The opportunity to gain your freedom from the downside. Was it not enough?
That night, an exiled reader returned to the Commonwealth. He was to be the last. The stars had faded, and the cycle of the rites had run its course. He found the Commonwealth in great upheaval. Spurred by the efforts of 6 liberated exiles, Wolfred Sandalwood's revolutionary plan had incited the masses. These exiles in the starless sky ported the return of the scribes. The people surged into the street, shoulder to shoulder, led by the 6 exiles. Their voices shook the heavens. The leadership of the Commonwealth panicked. No blood was shed that night, and by dawn it was over. The leaders of the Commonwealth had cast themselves into exile, or joined in this news cause. Thus, in its 838th year, the Commonwealth had fallen. The new Sharia Union declared its sovereignty in the next year. Among the changes the selected leaders ushered in, they vowed never to cast their people into exile, and they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding literacy. Today, we still remember all of this, and we remember the exiles of the downside whose deeds led to the dawning of a new age, whether they returned or not. After her liberation, Jodie soon became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and to the rise of the Sharia Union. Her horns and stern countenance inspired the people to believe that she was Selim Mur, reborn. She became a great, if reluctant, leader. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodie's seasoned expertise came into play both in the matters of security and of state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we have celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close with Hedwyn all through this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. She kept an eye on Faye, who nonetheless demonstrated a surprising knack to get by on her own, though Jodie was always willing to provide assistance just in case. She continued training on her own, a regimen which grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness, for the most part. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom, his honor. Gilman relinquished his knighthood and declined an opportunity to serve as captain on the Blood Border. He was not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a great need for him to once again make use of his military training. Thankfully, however, the scribe's return ended peaceably. Gilman was on edge throughout that night, expecting violence to erupt at any moment, but the moment never came. When the matter was at last put to rest, then Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstances, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly, just in case, especially with his fleet-footed friend, Rookie Greentail. He was always grateful for the counsel of the Reader, and would regale him over and over about the time they squashed the spawn of unfathomed plurns. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was the first step toward gaining a bit of self-respect. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion, and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen, and the occasional visit. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself, to be renewed each day. After his liberation, Hedwyn was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth, and was vital to the outcome of the plan. The peaceful outcome of the scribe's return was attributed to several key factors. One of them was the underlying ambition of the plan itself. Another was Hedwyn's visibility among the people in the streets. Identified to be a liberated exile, he was believed to be Golgothian reborn. More importantly, however, was one of the one-winged harps of the Highway remnants accompanied him. She was later identified as Faniki Shang. Their bond was symbolic of what was at stake that night, and proved vital to the peace that followed. In all his days as a leader in the Shurian Union, Hedwyn oft confided in his friend Jody. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Jody, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again together. His promise had come to pass, though he always knew that this was not his own doing. He was always deeply grateful to the other three, his closest friends. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not all able to return in contact thus, Hedwyn thought of each of them often, and so, in turn, did they oft think of him. The imp called Tizo was the first of his kind to achieve liberty through the rites. While he was not the only imp trained in the ways of the scribes, imps are native to the downside and thus not for traveling abroad. This made them useful to triumvirates. Yet Tizo had a different calling, and the Nightwings believed that he, too, could play a key part in Volfred Sandalwood's plan. During the night of Scribe's return, he stood out to the populace as something of a miracle. They had only heard of downside imps before, from legends of Haub the Swallow. Afterwards, he became something of an icon, representing both the fall of the Commonwealth and beginning of a new era. He would visit his friend Faye at every opportunity. She was among the few who could consistently interpret what he meant, and they were always close since they first met. Volfred Sandalwood would sometimes send him little gifts, all the way from the downside. Despite the insurmountable distance between them, their friendship proved more than resilient. He often chirped about the Reader of the Nightwings, with whom he built quite a rapport. The Reader understood him, perhaps better than anyone. And Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time conducting the rites alongside the Nightwings, who made such sacrifices for him. Other than that, Tizo was diligent about his role as something of a living artifact, and helped interpret for the messenger imps that relayed news to him from the downside. Despite having gained sufficient celebrity, he never let it go to his head, although he did take full advantage of his access to the Shurian Union's fishing industry. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained in the downside continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyonder Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparition Sandra the Unseeing. One possibility is that when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyonder Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyonder Crystal ever existed, or rather that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fever dream. The bog dwellers of the Seven Bogs still offer another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object, in which the Sisters of the Ark had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment could have expired along with the light of the stars. With this, what this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant that they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fate of Sandra and the Beyonder Crystal remains unknown. Yet those exiles of the Nightwings who claim to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence, or perhaps a little fear. The Commonwealth had never provided a sense of home for the one they called Faye the Fair, so she was surprised on her return that she was so well treated. She felt uneasy about it, and besides, she knew that she would do her best to fulfill the pledge she made to her friends. Even she could not have expected the impact that would have been on the events that followed, which gave rise to our Sharian Union. Despite not fitting the image of any of the scribes, Faye nonetheless stood out alongside the others amid the teeming masses on the night of Scribe's return. She spoke of the scribes with such conviction and sincerity that the crowd was very moved. After the fall of the Commonwealth, there was a renewed interest in the legend of the 8 scribes and many new interpretations of their histories and teachings. Faye found herself at the center of all this. Her way of speaking continued to compel a growing audience. She swayed many of the people from their astralist beliefs. Soon, the 8th Word, which had lost favor with the people during the reign of the Commonwealth, sought her out and asked her formally to join, and she did right away. Theoretics believing the 8 scribes were more than mortal, and their words divine. Among her friends, she always remained close with Tizo, who, more than anyone, could always make her laugh. She cited her relationship with Jody as the single most important in her life. Jody would always provide for her a circumspect perspective and the wisdom of experience. Whenever she felt genuine doubt, which was not very often, she sought out the reader of the Nightwings. If there was anyone whom she trusted more than as much as the scribes, it was him. Faye always was devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Many people in the Syrian Union cited that her gentle manner and unwavering conviction helped them brave the changing times with courage and grace. After Rookie Groontail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth, as was the tendency for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he did end up siding with Volfred Sandalwood's revolutionary forces, as he promised. On the night of Scribe's return, Greentail was there with the others, inspiring the masses. He never looked prouder, the very image of Jimur Moneymain himself. When dawn finally came, and it became clear that the Commonwealth that everyone knew would be no more, he realized many new opportunities awaited. He began quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such a thing, but the money was too good, and soon his family was well off, as he always said. He also kept in touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tiptoe shape as much as possible throughout the years. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The croton called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There, she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps even monumental events such as the circumvention of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her effort was doubtless due to influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she admired now for decades. He had made clear that he could not requite her feelings for him. But what could have been a hurtful dismissal led only to a deeper understanding between them. She maintained an unlikely kinship with the harp Pamitha Thayin, whom she had known during their time together on the Nightwings. They each had different strategies for dealing with life's day-to-day annoyances, a subject they both found vital, if fascinating, to no end. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans. The work brought to her a sense of purpose, she would say. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her much more the living legend. After the rites ended, Pamitha Thayin parted ways with the other Nightwings, stating she needed time alone. She reappeared sometimes after the fall of the Commonwealth, although she expressed mild surprise at the news. She claimed to have no knowledge of what went on, including what role the Highway remnants had in the events that reshaped the world on the other side. For her part, Pamitha feigned little interest, making the point that they were stuck, and what happened elsewhere had little to do with them now. Someone whom she kept in contact with was the bog dweller called Big Bertrude. They would discuss all sorts of matters long into the night, and sometimes hunt together too. One day, while traveling to Big Black Basin, Pamitha ran into her blood sister, Tamitha, for the first time since the culmination of the rites. Their reunion was not as amicable as Pamitha might have hoped, and Tamitha, still resentful of their history together, turned violent. Pamitha would later brush aside the incident, though always had an injury to show for it. Yet from that point on, the Blood Sisters were back on speaking terms, at least for the most part. Having long since felt as though she had no home to call hers, Pamitha continued traveling about the downside. As the tempest swept across the land, changing its features, she found in it a sublime beauty, and in the starless nights she could still see just fine. She said such travels tended to remind her of when she was younger, and could fly unfettered. When the cycle of the rites ceased turning, Velfred Sandalwood turned toward the starless sky and closed his eyes and prayed. It was all that he could do at that stage of his plan. He aspired to assemble with liberated exiles representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They could each stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. When the rites ended sooner than expected, this ideal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood's own freedom, for instance, was now forfeit. Yet, the plan did have contingencies. Fortunately, most of those contingencies did not prove necessary. Word reached him that on the night of Scribe's return, his fellow liberated Nightwings stood together, and their voices echoed through the streets. These former exiles who ought to have disappeared into the ranks of the Commonwealth's own leadership now stood united with its people, who poured from their homes in solidarity. It was imperative to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature. An overwhelming show of popular support would be more than enough. Ensuring this was his priority, and in the end, the result was self-evident. The plan's goal had been achieved. Sandalwood kept busy after that, as much as possible, providing counsel from afar to those who would be at the forefront of the birth of the Syrian Union. Of course, being stranded in the downside meant there was only so much he could do. Resting assured that the future of the nation was in capable hands, he turned his attention to the remaining exiles in the downside. They might never return to that new nation, but at least they could experience its triumphs and struggles in some vicarious way, so he took to his old work, writing and painting. As literacy began to spread again throughout the Syrian Union, so too did the exiles of the downside take to him. For his part, Sandalwood helped to teach as many as he could. More than that, he provided the material to read, a semi-annual report about the latest events both in the Syrian Union and the downside. This periodical gave many exiles something to look forward to. He enjoyed exchanging letters with the reader of the Nightwings, who kept him well abreast of how their other comrades in the fledgling nation fared. As Walfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout the land for all his sacrifices and contributions. It is said that he remained steadfast about 2 things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus, the freedom that the people had achieved. It was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, to commemorate his birthday, the people of the Syrian Union unveiled a monument depicting him and the Nightwings as imagined in their prime. While Sandalwood did not learn of it until much later, it is said that he was moved to tears, then by the gesture. It is since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles and our cause.
Yes.
You'd probably come down tight.
With the rights drawing to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitous, and Falcon Run was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave to it one of the remaining trinkets, which could not be sold. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth in a newly minted coinage from the Syrian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp then and there. Though this trade remained a grey area from a legal standpoint in the Syrian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrude's and found a distribution partner on the other side through Rookie Greentail, whose own business has expanded. Especially in the Syrian Union, Falcon Ron's goods are still known for their superior quality, though he assumes no liability for any side effects. As the cycle of the rights drew to a close, it grew evident that a chance at freedom from the downside had forever slipped from Dalbert and Ulmer Aldhart's grasp. Thus they and the exiles of the Fate returned to Jameer Valley. There they struggled to get by, as exiles of the downside tend to do. Sometime after the rights had ended, the Aldharts at last heard the news the Commonwealth had fallen. This was well after the fact, of course, but it brought old Dalbert great joy. Despite his forthright manner, he had no love for the nation that had cast him down, along with his son. Dalbert Oldhart passed peacefully in his sleep before the next new moon. In his final days, he implored his son undertake a pilgrimage to the scribes. Almer never shared his father's view of the scribes, but respected Dalbert's wishes, and so after a period of mourning, Alberga began a new journey. Not a day went by, Almer Oldhart did not think about his father, and gave thanks to him, and speak to him, at morning and at night. Would that the stars yet shone, for surely Dalbert would be there among them, smiling. No, I'm not going to. Smiling down at his son, and watching over him and his kin. After the final liberation rite, Lendl refused to believe that the rites had truly ended. He would sit through the night after consecutive night, staring at the blackness of the sky, awaiting for any kind of sign that he may gain another chance at freedom. No? No such sign ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority once liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Lendl dismissed them as weak fools. He insisted, rather forcefully, that at any evening now the stars would shine for him again and mark the way toward his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The others in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that, the exile known as Lendl the Liar was never seen again. However, there have since been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Lendl's cruel countenance, suggesting he yet lives. All his life, Sir Deluge fled from one danger, only to find himself facing another. He had escaped the worn-torn waters of the Sea Dominion. He had escaped the blood border of the Commonwealth, and now he had escaped the rights. After the rights had ended, many exiles wrapped up in ancient test were crestfallen as their last chances to return home vanished, along with the stars above. But Deluge did not mind, for this outcome meant that at last there was no burden of responsibility weighing down on him. While most of his fellow exiles of the Pyre Hearts yet longed for the waters of the Sea Dominion, driven as ever by their impulses toward conflict, Deluge settled down. With him remained one of his companions, one Lady Seagrass, who had taken a liking to him for some reason. Reportedly, they disappeared into the waters of Worm Gulf, which may begin to explain the significant increase in worm population observed in the vicinity. After the cycle of the rites had ceased, Witch Uldmilhi returned to Flagging Hands region, where she sealed herself within the Pit of Milithi. There, even her fellow exiles of the Withdrawn allegedly grew unnerved after a time and left her to her vile work. Sometime later, the Pit of Mithili erupted into flames. So intense was the conflagration that it could be seen all the way from Jameer Valley. Arson was suspected, though the cause was never verified, and many bog dwellers in the region were forced to flee. A tempest blowing from the north finally quenched the flames. When at last the ashes settled and the grounds had cooled, the site of the fire was scarred beyond recognition. No trace of Witch Uldmilhi could be found. As for the contents of the Pit of Mithili, which notably included a profane object thought to be the remains of Yashlock, all of it was gone as well. Back in the Syrian Union, Uld-Milhi's repeated threats of the return of Yishlak were thoroughly investigated, and no credence was found to any of her claims. Barker Ashpaws never had much interest in returning to the Commonwealth, for he always found its bylaws to be stifling, so when the rites ended he did not care at first. He soon grew very bored. The rites had given his life a sense of structure he had always needed. He missed the raw anticipation of it all. He decided to continue conducting the rites for the thrill of it. He bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. His packmates, the dissidents, proved more than happy to participate, and thus they ran against each other back in Jimmer Valley. Gradually, other exiles familiar with the rites, as well as those who had not heard of it at all, started to take an interest. They ended up giving Barker Ashpaws some healthy competition. His old feud with Rookie Greentail ceased meaning anything to him, and he forgot all about it amid his new pursuits. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpaws, who had led such a directionless existence to that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exiles, or more, was oft debated by those who watched him work. Throughout her exile, Tamitha Thane was motivated by a single goal: to return to the Commonwealth and exact vengeance on her ancient enemies. When she realized the rites had ended and that she would never see her mountain home again, she nonetheless remained determined to aid her people however possible. She had gathered certain information pertaining to the intention of the Nightwings, who had formed a pact to regroup on the other sides after their liberation. Other such reports exposed weaknesses in the Commonwealth defenses and revealed to the Highway remnants the opportunity for a risky but potentially impactful strike. As Tamitha could not participate in the assault, she learned what happened well after the outcome. On the night known as Scribe's Return, the Commonwealth had fallen. The Highway remnants thus prevailed at last without even having to fight. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Tamitha encountered her blood sister, Pamitha, come to pay her a visit. Pamitha had hoped their people's victory on the other side would be a cause for reconciliation. Tamitha was skeptical of her intentions, however, and lashed out at her. Pamitha made no attempt to elude the attack and was struck full on. This cost Pamitha the use of her right wing. Yet after she recovered, she shrugged the incident aside and said maybe that they would call it even now. From that point on, the Blood Sisters kept a formal distance, but were cordial with each other. Knowing that the conflict on the other side had ended, Tamitha retreated to the crags of Black Basin and grew ever more distant. Those closest to her surmised that her inability to reconcile with her blood sister was at the heart of this, though, for her part, Tamitha never once admitted to any such weakness. These would be pretty dramatically different depending on things you did, huh? Once it became clear to Ignarius that the rites were drawing to a close, he knew that it was time for him and the Tempers to call it quits. But first, he and the Tempers decided to celebrate, and they did that for many, many nights. The revelry did eventually subside. The exiles parted amicably and went their separate ways. He roamed the downside then, searching for some meaning in his life, sometimes taking odd jobs requiring his brute strength. He never remained alone for very long and took on many lovers in his time. However, he sometimes thought about the one he had called Curlyhorns and what became of her. Though his glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rites had long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated at that time. When Manly Tinderstaff realized the rites had ended and that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth through this ancient means, he was outraged. He cursed the scribes, spewing forth a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of high status and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused all his energies on attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via messenger imp and used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using an elaborate pulley system, he attempted a retrofit of a flying black wagon with superior propulsion, he tried an imp raft, a hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There was only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. Tinderstaff bankrupted his family in these vain attempts. At last, such was his shame that he retreated to the teeming woods of Black Basin to Cinderwood Root. There, he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the chastity who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or the latest news from the other side. After the Shimmer Pool closed for what would be the last time, Orlek looked around him in the flickering light of the Nightwing's still burning pyre. He then returned to the Fall of Salim and looked up toward the black, starless sky. He cursed the 8 scribes then, one after the other. After that, he strode forward, towards the warders coursing from the side of Mount Elodial, and, without hesitating, he cast himself down. Orlek's body was never recovered. The drop from Mount Elodial does not appear survivable, though Orlek did survive it once. That time, however, he was filled with fury. Such was the betrayal he had suffered from his fellow exile, claimed his rightful freedom. This time, Orlek was filled with nothingness, and chose to leave the downside in the one way he still knew he could. The other Nightwings who were witness to this never forgot what they saw. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, the lone minstrel bade the reigning Nightwings to take the Black Wagon and seek their fortunes elsewhere in the downside. Their parting was heartfelt, but brief. He remained there at the summit of Mount Elodiel with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycle. Neither Tariq nor Celeste were ever seen again. We all know this now through song attributed to them. Some claim these songs originated in the taverns of Syrian Union and merely were imbued with the weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from the downside corroborated each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggests these minstrels were heralds of the scribe. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed the world we know and rejoined their patrons. One of their famous songs describes another, simpler outcome, that the two gave up their duties and their rights in favor of a life they could share together. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and such songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our times. There is one more account which warrants mention. The Nightwings conducted the rites under the guidance of a reader. Little is known of him. However, some accounts of him begin to paint a picture. We know he was of common birth, always directionless and prone to misremembering at times. The journey to the downside left him close to death. It was then the Nightwings found him. They brought him from the brink. He showed them the path. He pressed onward with the others. He made a vow to help his friends be free. Thus did the cycle of the rites commence its final turns. When the final rite arrived, the reader's freedom was at stake. That freedom he had indeed achieved ere the morning's light. From that point on, accounts of him diverge. It is said the voice which troubled him he never heard again. Some say he sailed for the seas far west of here, though whether that is true, only he knows. Some day, perhaps, that reader's own star shall emerge. Then it shall pierce the dark of night in all its brilliant glory. Until such time, and ever after, all of us give thanks.
Their journey began on a barren waste where the reader arrived, afraid and alone. When he arrived, the book of rites awakened the Nightwings and ignited the flame. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in our brain till the end. We sing of the last of the Nightwings who, having broken the cycle, shall live on in song. Headwind prevailed and strode the path that his heart laid before him. He has found his way home. Captain Joe Dariel, mother to many a foundling, she has found her way home. Rookie Greentail has proved his worth and returned to his family by the grace of the scribe. from the downside, he has found a new home. Sir Gilman the Bold, ever in his quest, finding honor and glory, he has found his way home. Amitha Thane, born on guilty wings, ever seeking forgiveness, she remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Bound together, spirits tether, strands unbroken, spines
The great mastermind, Wolfred Sandalwood, saw his plans turn to action. He remained till the end. The bog dweller Bertrude kept their foes at bay with her finest enchantments. She remained till the end.
The reader at last made the night wings whole and ascended to freedom. He has found his way home. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find our way home. We shall find our way home. We shall find our way
What's the True Nightwings campaign mode? The players, your adversary should be favored by the stars, but it's just a difficulty setting. Okay, I thought it might be something about Orlek. It was a very good game. I'm sorry, Walfred and Pamitha. Not really Bertrude.